The card visual with states is a custom visual provided by OKViz. It pulls together the best elements from 3 of the built-in Power BI visuals. First of all, it's a card visual and allows you to display a single metric or KPI. Second, it allows you to pull in some of the aspects that's available in the KPI visual. So that's an ability to display a background trend across each of the cards, and also to display a message that gives a target and a variance from that target, while also allowing you to conditionally format the color of the actual measure and some of the other aspects of the card. Finally, it allows you to trellis the values and dynamically create either cards for each category or to display multiple measures in the same visual. So in this video, we're going to be looking at 3 different scenarios for how you can set up and customize the card visual with states. And I'll also be looking at some of the visualization's limitations. Okay, so let's crack on. The first thing we need to do is we need to go and download this visual. So get more visuals. And we're going to just search for state here. And here it is here, card visual with states. Now you need to go and register for this, and you will need to provide some details, but you will get a free registration key. So it is actually a premium visual. However, OKViz have opened it up and they've allowed it to be registered for free for anybody. So it's great. Okay, so once you've downloaded it, it will be available here in the custom visuals section. So we're going to go and start adding in a measure to this one here. So I'm going to use some of the measures I've got here. Here's one here, schedule compliance. So let's add that in. And we can see here the first thing it's going to do is it's going to ask you to unlock the premium features. So I have got this option here under premium, and I'm going to insert my name here. Now this is a name and it is case sensitive. This is a name that you registered this under. And I'm going to paste the key that I got in the email into there. And we can see once you've got the name right, you can see that it's going to validate this key there. Okay, so now we've got a value displayed here. Let's go and we'll start looking at configuring this card. Okay, so the first option we've got here is to apply a template. So if we go and click here, it takes us to a gallery, and these are some of the templates that we can apply. Now, if they're pretty close to what you want, or you're just looking for something really quick, then you can choose one of these and it'll apply all the configuration. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go through and I'm going to configure it myself, but I might save my end configuration and then we can use it again in the future as a starting point or as a finished article. So let's go back to here and minimize that. Now the card. So the first option we're going to look at is just going to be a single card, and we'll add in a trend as well. And this to me is the biggest benefit over the standard card, is the ability to actually configure the left and the right justification of the value here, as well as the padding from the top and the padding from either the left if you've left justified it, or if you've right justified it, the padding will, this option here will change the padding from the right. So I'm going to pad it off to the left here, and I'm going to basically, I don't want it right at the very top. So if I go here, it's a bit too high. But what I will do is padding from the top, and I'm going to change it to 10. Okay, I'm just going to stick it there for just now. I might change that later on, but that'll be fine for just now. And we're going to leave that as it is. Now, multi-cards, we're not going to use multi-cards, we're just going to do one at the moment. Now let's go to the data label. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make that slightly lighter. Okay, it's just subtle, but I don't want it to be really black. We'll come back to the conditional formatting stuff later when we start talking about conditional formatting. Display units is fine. I'm going to make it slightly smaller for just now, and then I'm just going to change this font family to be this one here. Okay, so that is the data label. So next I'm going to go back to the options here for adding in additional fields, and I'm going to add in a trend axis. Okay, so we've got a date table here that's got a relationship to the table that stores the KPI values. So I'm going to pull in this date here to the trend axis, and we can see it's created a nice little trend here. And if we go back into the format options, we'll be able to see, yep, here it is here, we've got this trend option just now. So there's a few options you can use to configure the trend. The first thing is where it actually sits. So empty bottom space, lower half space, or we can actually stick it in the full space there that goes above it all. But I actually like this this empty bottom space here, so we'll leave it there for just now. We can change the start and end of the y-axis, but I think we're just going to leave it on auto for just now. That seems fine. And then we can also decide on the actual how the line is rendered. Okay, so straight gives us this sort of zigzag view. Monotone and smooth both kind of give a smooth kind of overview. One slightly more than the other. And then we've got the option there if it's adequate to do a stepped view of life. So I'm going to actually just leave it at the monotone one just to get a feel for the trend. So down here we can determine what to do with missing data points, and then down here we've got the option to show tooltips. Now that's really handy because you actually get to see, unlike the KPI card, you get to see the actual values as you move along this trend here, which is really good. So next we're going to go to the line color, and I'm going to make that much subtler. Here we go, I'm going to get one of these grey colors here. That's fine. So I just want it to be de-emphasized. I want the figure to be the actual focus, and then the trend is just a little bit extra information to understand how it's moving over time. We'll come back to the conditional format and stuff. Line markers. Okay, so I'm happy with the line markers being slightly darker than the line itself. That's fine. The line weight, I think one's probably fine for just now, because I'm going to make it slightly smaller. And we'll leave it at that for just now. Now, you've got the option here to show the different data points. Now I'm going to make the weight of the point slightly bigger. And we've got the option to show the highest, show the lowest, and show some area. So we'll leave the current point on. I'm going to put the highest on. I'm going to put the lowest on. And if you put those on, you've got the option to put a colour there as well. So I'm going to actually just use the colour for the highest and lowest to be grey as well. Okay, and I think looking at this, I'm going to make the weight just slightly bigger of the line. Okay, and then the final option here is show area. Now, I do actually like it. I just kind of grounds it a little bit, so I'm going to leave that on. And the transparency, I'm going to reduce that slightly. Okay, so we're starting to get the low, the high, the first, and the last points. Just so happens to be that the first point was the highest in this example here. Okay, so now we've added a trend. We can see here there's an option here that determines what it is we actually want to see here in terms of the data label value. So do you want to see the last point, the first point? Do you want to see the sum, the average, etc.? And then we've also got this option here, this premium option, where you can actually display the point on the card that you've actually hovered over. Now, I'm not going to use that option there, but I am going to use the last point. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is add in this target here, and to do that there's a couple of different options. The first option I'm going to cover is just to hard code the target values directly into the visual itself, and then we'll look at using a measure for the second option. So let's go to states. We want to switch on this advanced states, and the options here are the different aspects of this card that we actually want to conditionally format. So you can conditionally format the label. We've got this reference label, which is going to be a comparison between this and the target. Now that reference label is only available if you use a measure as a target. So we can't use that at the moment. We can conditionally format the background, the trend line, or we can conditionally format both the background and the trend line. So I'll just leave it at the data label for just now. And that'll be fine for states. And then underneath in this conditions is where you actually define the conditions. Now it's very similar to the built-in conditional format and rule builder that Power BI provides. However, there's so you've got to think about the order that you apply the actual conditions. So the first one we're going to do is if schedule attainment, schedule compliance is greater than or equal to, so we need to get a value here. So the first thing we're going to check to see is it greater than or equal to the target that we want, which is 85. So I'm going to put 0.85. Okay, now we've got this option here, do not apply other conditions. So that is going to mean that if it meets this condition, it's not going to then go and subsequently check for further conditions, which is what we want. So if it doesn't meet that condition, that's fine. Now the second condition we want is it greater than 0.8? Okay, now if it's greater than 0.8, it must mean that it is between 0.85 and 0.8. So that's exactly what we want for the second condition. And then the third condition is going to be if it's less than, and we'll make this one equal to, so if it's less than 0.8, okay, it's going to be red. So that's going to be our conditional formatting there, and we can see it's already met this one here, which is a yellow color there. So I'm not typically a fan of using this red, amber, green stuff, but I'm going to use it for just now because that's just to demonstrate this. So next we're going to move on to this category label here, and we can see under display we've got auto because we've got the name of the category and we've got the actual date of the last data point at the moment. Okay, so if we go to auto, we can determine what is actually displayed in this value here, which is really good, really useful. So if we want to get the measure with aggregation, I'm not 100% sure what that does. I've played about with it for a little bit, but I'm not sure. Measure with target. Now this is only available, this measure versus target, once you've actually got a target that's added in as a measure. Okay, so we'll come to that in a second. But if you've got this option here, yeah, goal is blank. Again, you only get that if you've got a target. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to this custom text. So in here we're going to put some text. Okay, so the target is greater than 85%. We can see that there. Okay, so pretty much that's as far as we can take it at the moment. So we've got the actual value, we've got the target, we've got a trend. We're now going to be able to show automatically a variance until we actually add in the target as a measure. So let's go and do that. Okay, so I'm back here with the KPI card and I've gone to the different field wells here and we can see that there's an option here for targets. So let's go and we'll pull in a target here that's a measure. So here's this one here, and all I've done here is create a target here, and I've just added in here as a value. Okay, so we're going to pull that into this targets option here, and then this now allows us, if we go back into the options, we go to category label, and this custom text, rather than use that, we can use this here. Okay, so now we can see that that target, which is 85%, is actually now being pulled through from that measure. Okay, so it opens up the ability to do that comparison value here. Now the other thing I want to do is in the data label is I want to show the reference. Okay, now once we do that, there's a load of other options are going to open up here, and we can see there's an additional value being added here. Now that's the reference to the target. So let's go in and I'm going to change that to be, well, we've got percentage over target, so how far over or under the target we are. But or you can do change over target. There's a few options there. Now I'm just going to do the change over target, I think it is. Yeah, -2%. I just like to get the absolute value. It's 2% below the target. We can have the position on the right, or we can have the position underneath it. So I'm just going to leave it off to the right there, which is fine for me. And then we can actually change the reference size. So I'm going to put that down to 60, make it a little bit smaller. Okay, so that is us there. So let's go back in and go to this category label. And we've got this option here. Now I'm actually going to make it slightly better. I don't like the word goal there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to custom text. Now the target 85 is still there. I'm going to get rid of that. And if I hover above the custom text help here, we can see that there are a few bracketed fields, or curly bracketed fields for the target, for the current name, for the previous, for the category name, for the etc, etc. So there's a few things in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put the target in here. Okay, and we can see it's picked up this value here automatically. So the target is greater than 85%. Okay, so I'm back in here again, and we can see that there's an extra condition target, so a sixth condition being added in at the end here. And this is the one that's going to compare it to this compliance threshold measure that we added in. Now, it will still go through each one of these, so if we do want to compare it against this one here, we do need to switch these other ones off. Okay, so I'm going to switch all of these off. And it's now going to compare it purely against this one here, and we've only got one condition here, which is if it's greater than the target, then we're going to go and make it red, so green. So if I change this to less than the target, and I'm going to make it red, okay, rather than yellow. Okay, so you've only got the one condition here. So how do we go and add in multiple targets, but in a way that they're dynamic and you don't need to go and completely hard code them in like we would have done with these conditions here? Well, we're going to cover that next. So there is an option here to add measures for the conditions. Okay, so these measures define what the condition values are going to be for what we've done here, for example, which is a good condition, a warning condition, and a caution condition. So I've identified these as measures, I create these as measures. So we can see here for caution I've put 83, for good I've put 85, and for warning I've put 80. Okay, so let's add these in to these conditions here. So now if we go back in here, we can see there's these three conditions here. Now if I switch these on, I'm going to switch that one off because we're now going to use a single target, but we'll still keep that single target because that's going to allow us to calculate this variance and to actually display this value here, and the target is 85. However, we do want to be able to put a warning and a caution in place as well. So we can see here if the value for schedule compliance is greater than or equal to this good state here, then it's going to be green, and then we're going to stop if it meets that. And then the second one is if the schedule compliance is greater than the schedule compliance caution, then we're going to make it that yellow color, which is actually changed to. And then finally, we're going to go into this one here, which is if it's less than the warning state, then we're going to make it red. Okay, so these conditions here are going to allow us to basically use dynamic measures to drive the actual targets, and that's really useful if you're going to use these on different measures across different dashboards or different Power BI reports. Okay, because it means you only need to go and actually change it in this measure value here. You don't need to go and update it in every single card or every single visual. Right, okay, so that is the dynamic setting of targets. So another option I just want to draw your attention to is this here, this states messages. Now this here, if we just hover above it, it says state measures to display dynamic state messages. The number of measures and their order must be the same as the conditions. Now I've played about with this for a bit and I'm going to show you what I've done, and it doesn't seem to matter. So I have reported this and hopefully they're going to fix it in the future so I can show you how it works now, and if it is fixed in the future when you look at this video, then perhaps it'll be working for you because it is a pretty neat bit of functionality. The idea is that you can associate a message with each state. So I'm going to go and add these into this field well here. Now I need to make sure that each of the messages relates, so there needs to be three messages and they need to relate in the same order, so good, caution and output. So let's look at the first one I've done, and they're pretty much exactly the same really. It's called, that's the name of the measure, great work, performance is above target. Okay, a little bit cheesy, but that's what it is. And I've got a similar message for caution and another one for warning. So let's go and add these in. Okay, so they're now in here, they're in the same order, good, caution, warning, good, caution, warning. And I need to go back in and switch these messages on. So we're going to go into states, and underneath here we've got this option for messages. Assign custom messages to every state. I'm going to switch this on, and we can see there's a new message section being added in here. So what I've got to do here is I'm just going to make that a little bit of padding here, just to give it a bit of breathing space. And we can change the size of the text, we can change the icon size here, we can change the message text here, and you can actually also change the icon color. Let's see, absolute value. Okay, but it doesn't really matter because it doesn't work anyway. So here's the color there. I think it's actually just matches the color of that text there. So what it should do is it should display the appropriate message for the condition that's been applied, which in this example here would be condition, the caution state here, the second one. But what it actually seems to be doing is actually always applying the message for the third one, which is a pity because it would have been good to see a message that told us here that there's a caution rather than a warning. Okay, so the final thing we're going to do is we're going to add in a title. So I'm on the visual and I've gone to under general, and we're just going to switch this on. So we've got the completed card, and it tells a bit of a story, which is great. And it would normally take a few layered cards to tell you this story, and that would obviously impact performance. So the first thing we've got is schedule compliance. Then we've got a value there which is yellow, it's a different color, so it's a visual anomaly. So it's going to draw our attention to the fact that it's 83, and that's then to the left, to the right of that, we've got it's minus 2%, and then underneath de-emphasized, but there as a reference is the target, which is greater than 85%, so we're nowhere off target by 2%. And then again, de-emphasized was sort of quite a bland color, is a trend over time. And that's going to allow us to understand that are we getting better or worse, or is this performance just a one-off anomaly? So that is the full picture there in one card, and it's really good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at adding multiple cards for multiple category values. Okay, so I've got a card here, and I've just done the same sort of configuration that I did before for the previous card. I've added in a measure, which is now production efficiency. We've added in a target, and we've got a date trend as well. So that's going to give us the same, pretty much the same information there. I'm just going to go and change this here because I want that to be 0 decimal places. So let's go and update that. Okay, now, so what we've got here is we've actually got this, if we look at the data for production efficiency, we've got it split by site, and I want there to be a card for each site. Now, I don't want to have to copy and paste a card for each of these sites, so I can use multiple cards. So to do that, I'm going to go back in here, and there's a category area here, which I just need to pull the category into, which is site. Okay, now we can see that it's actually turned this into these 4 cards, and they're pretty, they don't look particularly great just now. We can make it a little bit bigger, and we can make that trend a little bit smaller, but I want to actually have those as being 2 and 2, so 2 rows of 2. So I'm going to go into the options again, format options, and then multiple cards, and under here we can determine how many rows we want to have. So cards per row is going to be 2, and we can see that we just need to extend it a little bit just to let the trends show, and we'll make those a little bit smaller. Okay, space between cards, we're going to make that slightly bigger. Okay, give it a little bit of breathing space between the cards. And we can see the sort order we can have by title, by value, ascending, descending, etc. So I'm going to just leave it at manual for the time being. Okay, so that is our multiple cards. Now the next thing I need to do is I need to add in the category value here so we know which site each of these refers to. So let's go into the category label. We're going to go back to custom text. We want the target, but if we hover above here we can see that there's also cat name for the category name. So I'm going to put in here some curly brackets. I'm going to put cat underscore name, and I'm going to have to make this a little bit darker, I think, because it is not going to be, we want that to be fairly clear what that is. So let's make that a little bit darker, and I think that will be fine for just now. So alpha target is greater than 98%. Now I think I'm going to get rid of that, and I'm actually going to put because the target's the same for each one of these, so I'm actually going to put that in the title. Okay, production efficiency, target greater than 98%. So we could put it there, or we could put there's a little note underneath, just a footnote. It just needs to be somewhere. Now we've got Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta. I'm going to play with that a little bit more to make it a little bit more prominent. I'm also going to add a little bit of extra padding at the top here, so we've got a bit of space, a bit of white space between these two here. Padding left and right is okay, but I'll just give it a little bit more space there. Okay, perfect. That's that there. Now, what I am going to do now is for each of the cards, I'm actually going to add in a border with a bit of radius here. And I'm going to make the border this light grey colour here. Stroke width is fine, and I'm actually going to put a little bit of a shadow there as well. But I'm going to actually play with the shadow a bit. I'm going to change the blur, and I'm going to change the distance to be 5, just to make it a little bit subtler. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the background of this visual to be the same. I'll just switch it off actually. And then I'm going to put the background on for each of the cards, which is here, and I'll make that white. Perfect. So now if we come off of here, we can see that this actually looks like they're 4 different cards, but they're actually just a single visual there. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to change what I'm actually highlighting, because there's quite a few times when the same value is highlighted multiple times. So what I'll do there is go in In fact, I'm just going to show the trend over time. Okay, so we've now got the trellised effect now, and we need to add some conditional formatting to this. Well, we've got the conditional formatting there, we just want it to be red. Like I say, I'm not a massive fan of this red, amber and green. I just want to highlight where we've got issues, not where we're actually okay. But what we can do is look at adding a message here. Okay, so we want to add a message, and we also want to be able to put in a number of conditions. We don't want to be stuck with just being able to put one in place that's either above or below the target like we've got here. So that is fine actually, but if we want to put additional conditions in place, I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're going to use these condition options here. I've created some measures here, and the measure is just a number, okay? So we've got a caution, we've got a good, and we've got a warning status, okay? Now I'm going to add these in to this condition field well here. So I'm going to add that one first, and then I'm going to add the warning one next. I'll show you why that is. And then I'm going to add the caution one as being the third condition here. Okay, so what we've done now is by adding those in, we've actually now got 3 different conditions here, okay? Each one related to that measure. So if I open up one of these, I'll just switch these on. We'll see the colours are starting to change already. What it's done now is it's actually created this logic here that's really similar to the logic you would use in the query, the conditional format and query builder that you would normally use. So we've got production efficiency is greater than or equal to production efficiency state good, which we've already told I'll program into that measure to say that that is 98%. Then it's going to be red, so that's why these two are red, green, sorry. Then we've got the other condition here, which is production efficiency is less than or equal to the warning status. Now I want to put the warning status second, and we're going to put that as being red. Okay, so if it's less than the warning status, which is less than 90, which was the number which we'd chosen there, then it's going to be red. And then finally, the third one is if it's greater than the caution status, which is 90, it's going to be green. Okay, so if it's not less than 90, it must be, and it's basically it's the sequence that you actually place these in is quite important. So if it's greater than 99, 98, then great, it's going to be green. If it's less than 90, it's going to be red. If it's greater than 90, then it must be between 90 and 98, and then it's this yellow colour here, and we can see that's 91 there. Okay, so that's the first thing we can do. So we can create these multiple states. Now the next thing we want to do is put a message in place. Now, if you hover above here, we can see there's a section for state messages, and state message is, or state measures are there to display dynamic states messages, and it displays that, and the number of measures that you've got must be in the same order as the conditions. Basically, I think how it should work is that if we put the message related to good, the message related to warning, and the message related to caution in that order there, whichever one of these is triggered, it will then go and display the related message. So let's just add those in. Okay, and the message is pretty much the same for each one of them. It's just a piece of text. Okay, there's nothing fancy about that. It's just a piece of text in a measure. So we've got that as good, we've got that as the warning state message, and we've got that one as the caution state message, which is the same order as we've got the conditions there. So now we need to go and switch on the messages. So I'm going to go into states, and there's a button here, okay, to switch on the messages. So let's add that on. And we can see what's happened is it's always displaying the message for the caution, okay, which is the message that's the final message here. And that's exactly what I've played about with this for a while, and it looks like it's a bug, so I'm going to report this. But in the meantime, I've got another option for displaying messages, because it is really useful to be able to see these messages here, just as a little bit of an extra narrative to explain what the current performance is. So to do that, what I'll do is I'll get rid of these, and I'll go back in here, and underneath each of the conditions, because we've switched on this show messages, there's now an extra section here that has got the message that needs to be shown, and also an indicator. So we can see that there's like a positive sort of tick in the circle indicator there, and we can see these ones here have got different as a performance at risk, and we've got action required. So all I've done there is I've actually just typed in the message that I want to show when each one of these states are triggered. So if a good state is triggered, Then we want to say performance is on track, and we want to use this option here. Now there's quite a few different options here, and we want it to be green. Okay, and likewise I've done it for the warning state, action required, and then we've got a circle, and then I've done it finally for this one here. Let's minimize that. This one here, which is a yellow, performance at risk, and we've got a circle again. Okay, so that's going to allow us to actually add a bit of a message that explains what the performance is like, and it also gives that little extra indicator there, which I think is quite neat. Right, okay, so finally I just want to go and add a little bit of extra information to these titles here. So I'm going to go up to category label, we've got the custom text switched on, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the target up here, and I'm going to put the target next to each one of these. So I'm going to put category name, and then I'm going to use this pipe symbol here, and I'm going to put just the words target greater than 98%. And then I'm just going to get rid of that target statement in the title there, because I think people won't necessarily see it, even though it's quite big. Okay, so the final configuration option that I want to cover for this card with states is going to be using multiple measures. So we can see here that I've got a card, it's got 6 measures on it, and these measures have all been added into this section here, this measures section here. Now of course you can actually go into the formatting options, and I've got 2 cards per row, but you can change that if you want to, so we'll leave that as it is for just now. So I want to do a few things here. First of all, I want to be able to show the actual goal. Okay, so that's blank at the moment, and you can see here I also want to show what measure is being displayed for each one of these different cards. So let's go and we'll look at how you do that. So the first thing is the category label. Just now it's got goal and it's got the target value. Now we don't have any goals defined at the moment, or targets defined at the moment. So I'm going to go and pull those in so we can see those. Okay, so I've added the targets in here, and we can see I've just defined these as being targets there, and that 80% is coming through into this goal here. So that's the first thing. We've now got a target, and because we've actually added in these targets here, we've now got the variance from the target there as well. Okay, so that's great. Next, we want to actually display the measure, because at the moment it's just got a header there that says maintenance KPI summary. So let's go into the category label, and we can see there's some display options here, and we've got a lot of different display options. Now the first one we want to display is basically this one here, measure. Okay, now you'll see that now that we've got the measure, we don't have the actual target value. So we can display the measurable aggregation that I'm not 100% sure what that does. Doesn't seem to do anything at the moment. We've got the measure versus target. Now it's just telling us the name of the actual measure that stores the target. It's not the actual target value. We've got the goal, we've got the current data point, etc. So there's no option to go and add the name of the measure and the target. So if I go and look at the custom text, there is a custom text field for the target value there, but there's not a custom text field. There's one for the category name, but there's not one for the measure name, which is unfortunate. So we're going to have to do a little bit of a workaround here to get both of those, because I think it's important that you understand what the target is as well as what the measure is, and the current performance and the variance, because we want to tell a little bit of a story there for each one of these cards. Okay, so to do that, I'm going to just simplify this a little bit. I'm going to get rid of 4 of these measures and just use the 2 of the measures, the break-in work and the schedule compliance work. Okay, so I've simplified that down, and what I'm going to do is these targets here, I'm actually going to replace them with measures I've created. Now, these measures have actually got, well, first of all, let's go and change the category label to this one here, measure versus target. Okay, so in here we can see that it's actually displaying the measure name, break-in work or schedule compliance, plus it's also displaying the actual target, which is this measure name here. Okay, now if we can replace that measure name with a measure that actually contains the target, it's a little bit of a workaround, but it will give us what we need. So what I've done is I've created this one here, and the measure name is called target of 85%, and then the actual value is 85%. So let's pull those in, and I've done one for 5% as well for the break-in work, because that's what I want that target to be. Okay, so the net result is that we have got these targets here because they've actually taken through the name of the measure. Okay, so we've got this value here, schedule compliance versus target of 85%, break in work versus target of 5%. So now we've got more or less a complete picture. We've got the current value, we've got the variance from a target, -2% or +1%, and we've got the name of the actual measure plus the actual target, and then we've got the trend along the bottom, obviously, so that's coming up nicely. The next thing we need to do is apply some conditional formatting to change the color here based on some threshold value. Now, spoiler alert, it doesn't work, which is unfortunate. Or I can't get it to work anyway, which may be different from it not actually working. So I'm going to talk you through what I did to try and get it to work and explain why I think it doesn't work. Okay, so the first thing we've got is that we've got these targets here, and we've got two measures. So the first thing I tried to do was basically compare each target with each of these measures. So if I go into these options here, we've got the target option at the bottom there, and then if I open it up, what we can see is if the value of multiple values is less than or equal to a target of multiple values, then assign it as green. Now, something's happening there, but it's not clear to me what the multiple values is here, and whether it's multiplying the values together or summing the values together and applying it to each one. It seems to be working, because if I change that color, it's turning it to blue. But so that is a confusing option and doesn't seem to be giving us what we need, because it's only able to actually do one comparator as well. So in this one we want it to be greater than a value, not less than, and this one here we want it to be less than 5%, not greater than. So that's not an option, so let's switch that off. Now the next option we've got or explored was adding in conditions and hoping that these conditions would actually match up to each one of these if we added them in the same order. So if we put in the conditions here for schedule compliance threshold and another condition for break-in threshold. Okay, so again, something's happened here. It's turned green. So we've now got these two conditions here. And again, we've got this multiple values, and then we've got a triangle for multiple values. I'm not sure what that means. It's greater than or equal to schedule compliance threshold. So the value it currently is 83. Now that is not greater than the schedule compliance threshold, which is 85. And then we've got the second one in here, which is less than or equal to, so you can change the comparison there. But that one is not less than or equal to, and it's turning it green. So the value here is greater than this break-in threshold. So if I turn that to a different color, we can see it's applying it to both of these. So it's a little bit confusing. It doesn't seem to work, which is unfortunate. So if you do need to apply conditional formatting, then I'm afraid the only option that it looks like is feasible is to create individual cards, still using the card with states, and then obviously apply the conditional formatting, because you're only going to have one measure, and then you can have a direct relationship between the conditional the conditions against that measure and the actual colors that you want to format the text or the background or whatever. Okay, so let's just quickly summarize what we've covered with the card with states by OKViz. The first thing we looked at was just a single card with a single measure and the conditional formatting options there. Now the key thing, I guess, with this card that I keep reiterating is it tells a really good story. You've got the value, you've got the variance, you've got the actual target, and you've got a trend here with the ability to highlight highs and lows and first and last points, which is great. So that's the kind of basic card, which is really flexible and pulls together elements from some of the standard customized standard visuals in Power BI. Then we've got the ability to trellis by category. So in this example here, we trellised by site, and we were able to add in again some conditional formatting and all the good stuff that you can do in a single card with a trend, etc. And then finally we looked at multiple measures. Now we are able to put multiple measures, we are able to put a target for each one of those measures, show the trend and show the value, however, and the difference between the target. However, we are not able to, or I was not able to find a suitable solution to add some conditional formatting to there. So if you just want to display multiple measures without any conditional formatting, that's great. However, if you did want to display multiple measures, then you would need to revert back to using a card for each one of the measures. That would be my recommendation. So obviously there would be a performance element to that, because you're rendering 6 cards or 2 cards or whatever that is instead of just the one, but you would have the conditional format to go with that. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you found this video useful, I know it was a long video, but we've covered quite a bit. It's always great if you could give it a thumbs up, much appreciated. And if you want to keep up to date with the latest videos, I tend to release one every week, then hit the subscribe button, press the bell, and you'll get a notification whenever I publish a new video. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you in the next video.